Want to?
One or two more?
Yeah, we can keep on going. Is it Adam?
Yes, hi.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
What do you got for us?
First, I'd like to clarify a little bit on the Dole-Hagen race. I am from North Carolina.
Good.
It was particularly ugly because they never talked about issues in any of their ads. They just tried to see how hard they could slam each other.
Yeah.
So that one was.
I'm less American than. Oh, you're less American than I am. You're more un-American. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it was ugly. Anyway, the question I wanted to ask was, a theist friend kind of brought this up to me. How would you consider the relationship between reason and instinct? You usually deal with the reason versus faith thing. I'm just wondering where reason would play into that, and I'd be happy to take the answer off the air. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great. Thanks a lot, Adam. Appreciate it. You want to start?
Well, yeah. I guess some of our morality comes from our instincts and it comes from our evolutionary history, right? We are normally social animals, and we have empathy for each other and these sorts of things. And some of our base instincts, I think, need to be suppressed a bit in a civil society, right? You don't want to go smacking people because they make you mad, or you don't want to go do the caveman thing and whack somebody over the head and drag them off by their hair for mating, that sort of thing. So you have to, temper things. So I think that this is kind of the old mind-body thing, right, of how do you find the best balance between those things that you have at your disposal? And maybe reason shouldn't always win out, but...
I think it should.
Human.
No. I don't think it makes you any less human for reason to always win out. Here's why. When we're talking about instinct, I actually look at it as two different things, and you kind of addressed both of them briefly. There's the lizard brain instinct, which I think is something that we should suppress, and I think it's reasonable to suppress it. I'm not going to bash you over the head and drag you back to my cave so that I can procreate type thing. Then there's a different type of instinct that I'd say is our visceral initial response to a particular stimulus. And that is something that I think we are born with. It is cultivated by our experiences, but it is also trainable by our reason. We touched on this 2 weeks ago when I was here, where I talked about the fact that if I say, oh, you really made me mad, that's a little bit wrong. You did something, and my reaction was to get mad to it. May have been my initial instinctive visceral reaction, but I can train that. And I think that one of the big things is the purpose of this, which we talked about on the show several times in the past, is educating yourself and building an understanding and exercising reason to manipulate the way your brain processes information so that you are coming to the most sound, most reasonable conclusions you can. Teaches your brain to be better in the visceral, instinctive aspect as well. And once you've developed these critical thinking skills and proper skepticism and analysis of reality and evidence, then all of a sudden when somebody comes up to you and they tell you, hey, look, I've got this vial of water and it's got a memory and it's holding these elements within it, the essence of these toxins, and if you just drink this, you'll be fine, your bullshit detectors are going to go off the chart right off the bat because you've cultivated that. Whereas there are other situations, and this goes to what you were talking about with preying on people's emotions. Religions are trying to tap into that visceral response, the emotional response. I'm not, there's a quote from Star Trek. I think it actually ended up in one of the movies where Spock, who had been this logical character for all this time, made the statement that logic is the beginning of reason, or the beginning of wisdom, not the end of it. And okay, I understand that. Yes, I like to temper things with emotion. I'm kind of an emotional guy. I think the passion and what the hell is that? Somebody's throwing stuff at our wall. I think the passion and the enthusiasm for what I do probably comes out. And I make lots of decisions where I don't exercise reason that much at all, especially when I'm shopping. I'm terrible about that. Ooh, that looks like fun. I'm just going to enjoy it. But I think you can train that part of your instinct.
Yeah, and just to add one more thing, I think it's very important to sort of be aware of your visceral stuff at an intellectual level. So you're at least aware of these things that are pulling on you various directions, and so that you can kind of do something about them and not choose to be a victim of those. So shall I continue on maybe with the
Yeah, and maybe while you're doing that, somebody could go out and tell them to stop throwing stuff at the wall of the studio. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, the other scamlet I wanted to hit today, which is basically just called sin, and it's a control mechanism. And sin is some slight or some insult against some imaginary critter that's called God. And who's to say what a non-existent entity feels, or what sort of thing that he finds offensive? So I think that sin is made up, and even if it's not made up, when you start talking about sin, you have a lot of problem with omniscience, right? If God knows everything, then He knows what you're going to do, right? And how can you possibly offend God by doing what you're going to do? After all, God created everything. And if He's omnipotent, how can He be offended by anything? How can He be affected by the thoughts or the actions or the whatever you're doing in bed? Why would an omniscient and omnipotent person care or being care? So sin is an emotional control mechanism, as far as I'm concerned, and it plays on people's fear. Because they want to go to heaven. They've decided this heaven, this future reward that I've talked about before is a good thing, and sin is the means to get there, and that's the hoops they're going to make you jump through. And I wanted to talk about original sin, sin as a scam as it's used today, and then purgatory as a sin abatement mechanism. So original sin is a debt that you are supposedly born with. And you sort of have to work it off in your life, and that's a mechanism by which they get you into church so that you can kind of work off your sin or jump through the hoops on the sin. So sin is some nonsense crap, or original sin is some nonsense crap that somebody somewhere ate an apple, and somebody else being God, but having to be killed for the apple eating, and it's all your fault. So it's this very odd thing that God makes this rule that the apple eating is not good, and He has to come down and kill Himself to make it all better. And this original sin is all a sort of an emotional shell game, and so Jesus ends up sort of being the vessel for this sin, and so you owe this debt to Jesus somehow. And you must fix this problem somehow. You must pay your debt to Jesus, or you'll go to hell. And to make matters worse, everything that you would naturally do, lusting after some critter and wanting to go bang it on the head and take it home, that's a sin. And pretty much any sexual act that doesn't make babies is a sin, and all these other things. And so it's a mind game that they play with you. So it is particularly bad when they deal with teenage boys. I think, having been a teenage boy, they have this. You must not think about sex. They tell you can't think about sex. Really, God will get you. Don't think about it. Sex. Don't think about it. So you're going to go to hell if you obsess about sex, but they tell you not to think about it. So it's just this deliciously evil thing where they play this mind game with teenage boys and teenage girls, for that matter, right? So it's a perpetual state of guilt, and so that's the original sin. It's sort of lays this groundwork of this perpetual state of guilt. And how do they use that? Well, today they use this sin as a kind of a shell game. So under normal circumstances, when you harm someone, you owe a debt sort of to that person, or you have to make amends to that person, or you have to address that particular problem. But with sin, you're harming someone else is an affront to God, and you end up owing the church money or penance, or you have to go say the rosary or do some sort of confession thing in order to get rid of that. The poor guy that you harmed has to go be forgiven or forgive you, so they get robbed, and the church makes money off of this whole thing. So it's a way of directing attention and money and power to the church is what it's for. So how does this work in reality? Well, Charles Keating, who was one of the big figures in the savings and loan scandal back in the, the 80s, he stole $252 million in the savings and loan scandal, and he gave $1.25 million to Mother Teresa. And he was doing that as sort of a guilt appeasement thing, but he went to jail anyway. So the court system ended up asking Mother Teresa for this money back because it was ill-gotten, and she figured out ways to slip out of that, and basically ignored the request, and so the church effectively made money off of this little scam. So that's the kind of thing they do, is they get money as guilt appeasement and so on. Finally, I wanted to talk about purgatory, and this is more of a strictly Catholic thing. And so purgatory is a place that you supposedly go to after you die, where you have various types of sins. So let's back up a little bit. There are mortal sins and venial sins. Now, mortal sins are sins that are unforgivable, and you're going to go to hell. So supposedly,
unless you get forgiveness.
Unless you get forgiveness. Okay.
Who knows?
Right. So it's a mind game. It's a bunch of hoops to jump through. So if you have venial sins, that what that means is that you're just a little bit bad, and you have to be cleansed. So to be cleansed, you go to purgatory, and you supposedly get some fire there and some cleansing fire.
It's a very karmic system.
Yeah.
It really is. It's some elements of karma kind of got sucked into Catholicism with this.
Well, okay. How do you say?
Well, Catholicism with this idea of purgatory and some sins that aren't necessarily bad enough to condemn you to hell, but you're not quite deserving to go to heaven. So you have this period of working them off. It's similar to the idea of karma within some versions of Buddhism, where you are waiting in order to progress to your next reincarnation or whatever.
Right.
You've got this worse cycle. We talked about it a little bit with
the
Naranj
levels
and things. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway.
I got it. So, okay.
So, and non-Catholics rag on Catholics for crazy stuff like purgatory all the time. And by the way, I'll just add this as an addendum, if you ever want to find out what's wrong with your religion, just ask somebody in another religion.
Yeah, even especially like a sister religion, because they have all the dirt.
Yeah, a well-versed, scholarly, theological
Jews and Christians,
Muslim can tell you everything that's wrong with Christianity, and vice versa.
Actually, I think Americans are pretty ignorant generally about Islam, but
Islam,
okay.
Generally.
So the purgatory is a good scam because first off, it gets rid of this black and white thing, right? So if it's black and white, either you're going to be a pious, saintly person and you're going to go to heaven, or you're going to screw up somewhere, because there's so many ways to screw up with sin, that you're going to go to hell. And so generally people would say, oh, well, screw this. This makes no sense. I'm going to go to hell anyway, so why bother? But purgatory puts this nice little gray area in between where you're going to go to heaven eventually, but it's going to be a lot nicer, the nicer you are and the good things you do. But why this is a scam is because part of it is that it forces you to do good acts, and it also forces you to do acts that benefit the church, because the church has the power to aid you along this path. And they have this notion of prayers for the dead and this notion of indulgences where you can pay the church money and have yourself or your relatives who have recently died be aided along in the path towards heaven in this purgatory thing. And so this indulgences and this particular scam, this prayer for the dead thing, was one of the big rifts that grew, that was the beginnings of the Protestant church. So Martin Luther protested this notion of indulgences because it was hopelessly abused. And of course, it's a scam. I mean, it was constructed as a scam.
Yeah.
And so here's from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Number 211, how can we help souls being purified in purgatory? And the answer is, because of the communion of saints, the faithful who are still pilgrims on the earth are able to help the souls in purgatory by offering prayers and suffrage for them, especially the Eucharistic sacrifice. They also help them by almsgiving, indulgences, and works of penance. So these last things, almsgiving is giving to charity, indulgences is giving money to the church and as a favor, and works of penance is much the same thing as Acts. So anyway, purgatory is a great scam, and it capitalizes on this sin. And even the Protestant churches who don't believe in this purgatory use the earlier version that I just gave, where you have this shell game of responsibility, and under it all we have this original sin. And this original sin, I think, is why evolution is such a big topic. And how do we get from sin to that? Well, original sin is supposedly what Adam and Eve inherited by eating this fruit. Well, if there was no Adam and Eve, and if we have ancestors that go all the way back to bacteria, then that whole story is moot, and the whole reason for Jesus is moot, and the whole religion is pretty silly, which I think it is. So that's it for today. Next time when I come on, which will be about a month from now, I'm going to talk about two more scamlets, which are spin and collusion. And then I'll be done with the scamlets. And then maybe I'll do a show on rolling your own religion after that. I think that'll be a good topic.
Okay.
How you'd make a religion today.
Roll your own. We got about 25 minutes left in the show.
Yeah, let's go.
We're going to go ahead and take some callers. I want to hit a couple of things real quickly. As a reminder, we're going to dinner at Threadgill's after the show's over. The address is up on your screen. We're on for another 25 minutes. We'll be down there around 6:30. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to attend, as long as you're not coming down to preach, proselytize, provoke, punch, pester, blah, blah, blah. You're welcome.
Yeah.
And
think of.
as a reminder, since somebody brought it up with my absence last week, thank you to Martin and Jen for filling in for that. I had a work-related emergency.
That was a short notice thing.
It was very short notice, and normally that's something that doesn't happen with regard to my work. The show is streaming live. There's the address. It's ustream.tv/channel/the-atheist-experience. For those of you who are watching the video afterwards and haven't tuned in, do the calculations on your own. It's 4:30 to 6 Central Standard Time now, I think.
Right, it's Standard Time now.
Central Standard Time, but it's GMT minus 6.
Yeah, the Americas have this funny daylight savings time thing, so that makes it more fun.
And the other note is that the show schedule is going to be changing slightly. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I want to do it one more time. And that's that Russell's going to be coming in on the fourth week of every month to sit in this seat while I take a much needed and I think fairly well deserved weekend off on occasion after doing so many of these. But no, I'm not leaving the show. You can't get rid of me that easy. It's going to take a lot more than that.